Travel along, Catholic pilgrims, as we learn from St. Augustine, Doctor of the Church, while we read his book, Confessions. Hello, Catholic pilgrims, welcome back. When God speaks, things happen, and that's what we are going to hear about today. Please open to Book 11, Chapter 6, on page 258. But how did you speak? Did you speak as you did when your voice was heard in the cloud saying, "This is my beloved Son"? At that time your voice sounded and then ceased. It was speech with a beginning and an end. Each syllable could be heard and then died away, the second following after the first, and the third after the second, and so on in sequence, until the last syllable followed all the rest and then gave place to silence. From this, it is abundantly clear that your speech was expressed through the motion of some created thing, because it was motion subject to the laws of time, although it served your eternal will. These words, which you had caused to sound at time, were reported by the bodily ear of the hearer to the mind, which has intelligence and inward hearing responsive to your eternal word. The mind compared these words, which it heard, sounding in time, with your word, which is silent and eternal, and said, "God's eternal word is far, far different from these words which sound in time. They are far beneath me. In fact, they are not at all, because they die away and are lost. But the word of my God is above me and endures forever." If, therefore, in order that heaven and earth should come into being, you spoke in words which sounded and then died away, and if this was the way in which you created heaven and earth, then there must have been some material thing created before heaven and earth, something which, by its motion in time, could lend itself as a mouthpiece through which those words could be spoken in time. But there was no material thing before heaven and earth, or if there was, you must certainly have created it by an utterance outside time, so that you could use it as the mouthpiece for your decree, uttered in time, that heaven and earth should be made. For whatever you might have used to produce the voice by which the decree was uttered, it would not have existed at all unless it had been made by you. But to create a material thing which could be used to give voice to the decree, what word did you speak? So I've heard tons of people talk about Genesis over the many years of my Christian life, and we can get to a point where we think, oh yeah, I've heard it all. Well, today St. Augustine has made me think of something new, so there's always something to get when we contemplate God. When I, as an English speaker, think about God speaking the universe into existence, I imagine God speaking in English. Let there be light. I'm sure a Spanish speaker imagines God saying it in Spanish. But God doesn't speak one of our languages. None of those existed when the universe was created. Now, it's true that Jesus spoke Aramaic, but that language still would not have been around at the time of the creation of the world. And I've never thought about this before. But what language did God use? St. Augustine asks, but how did you speak? And at the end, he says, when you were bringing things into existence, what word did you speak? This is very interesting to think about. We know that God's words affect change. Jesus commands dead people to rise, and they do. Jesus commands demons to come out of people, and they do. Jesus calms a storm with his words. Jesus changes ordinary bread and wine into his body and blood with his words. But when Jesus was here, we had time and space. But at the beginning of time, before time even really began, what words did God use? Does he have a language all his own? I mean, I'm sure he does. That would make sense. What does that sound like? And it wasn't as if God spoke into a void. A void would be something. There was nothing. There was nothing to speak into. So, was the spoken act of creation just verbalized between the three persons of the Blessed Trinity? Man, I don't know, and we may never know. But wow, something amazing to contemplate. This is a great mystery. Definitely an amazing thing to ponder about our faith. But we will leave it here for today, Catholic Pilgrims. I'll see you back here soon. And until then, live the faith boldly and travel well.